Yeah.
So doing this course with Dalhousie allowed me to actually explore the cognitive piece of creativity, of which
Okay.
there are four different ways of thinking,
Mhm.
and exploring how to bolster that while also examining how do our biases prevent us from being creative and therefore exploring that innovative side. How do our fears of others prevent us from actually making really sound decisions that allow our organizations to be as innovative as possible? Because when people are afraid to show up as their true selves at work, guess
Yes.
what they leave behind most?
Yeah.
The risk to be creative, the
Yeah.
risk to think differently, the risk to say, hey, my experiences have allowed me to see that this thing that we're doing, this
Yeah.
project, is going to make mistakes down the road. But
Mhm.
I'm too afraid to say that
With another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. You've got to log to the Audacious Living Podcast, and as always, there's an absolute such as inclusion and diversity, recognizing humanity in others, are just a few to say the least. It really is a great conversation that I'm certain you'll all enjoy. So without any further ado, here's my chat with Celina. Enjoy. Hey, Celina, it is great to connect with you again. Thank you for being here on the Audacious Living Podcast.
I am so happy to be here with you. I loved it the last time. Let's just do it
Yes,
again and
yes.
see where it goes this time. Because a
I,
lot's happened since the
yeah,
last.
there has been, and you've been keeping busy as I would expect you to, and doing a lot of great things, having impact, and living that audacious life that
I keep living audaciously. So, I mean, if I'm going to keep falling into the theme, I might as well keep coming back.
let's roll with it. Let's roll with it. I feel like we'd have you here every week. It seems like, which I welcome, by the way, just for the
Yeah,
record.
yeah, yeah. It's not bad. Maybe bring me in like as a guest
There you
every
go.
weekend.
There
Yeah,
you go. There we go. We'll talk to the producers, see what we can come up with.
yeah.
But
Segment with Celina.
there you go. There you go. That's I love. Hey, you've done this before. I love it. But I want to talk a little bit about creative innovation with all the things that you've been
Yeah.
doing, right? With all the things that you've got going on in your world. The creative innovation one is one that I immediately connected it, and maybe because it's directly the podcast and how important that is to our being our audacious selves. Something that's important to you, which I don't know if I necessarily knew that, but it was good to learn that. I wonder if you could explain a little bit about how you sort of fell into this realm, and then you're now teaching it.
Yeah. So, it's very interesting that I was actually approached by Camille Dundas to I asked her about the courses that she was doing with Dalhousie University,
Mhm.
and she said, I'm doing these courses. They're micro credentials for leaders and for individuals in corporate settings, et cetera. And so I had a call with Dalhousie. DEI, I'm kind of in that space, but it's
Yes.
not my space.
Mhm.
I am an expert in leadership and building, sort of taking that learning from DEI and applying it to traditional leadership skills. Because if leadership is like a 100-piece puzzle,
Yes.
there's 40 missing pieces that DEI and sort of our biases, our stereotypes, they fill in.
Yeah.
So doing this course with Dalhousie allowed me to actually explore the cognitive piece of creativity, of which
Okay.
there are four different ways of thinking,
Mhm.
and exploring how to bolster that while also examining how do our biases prevent us from being creative and therefore exploring that innovative side. How do our fears of others prevent us from actually making really sound decisions that allow our organizations to be as innovative as possible? Because when people are afraid to show up as their true selves at work, guess
Yes.
what they leave behind most?
Yeah.
The risk to be creative, the
Yeah.
risk to think differently, the risk to say, hey, my experiences have allowed me to see that this thing that we're doing, this
Yeah.
project, is going to make mistakes down the road. But
Mhm.
I'm too afraid to say that because this place is not safe.
Right.
So, how do we then explore the DEI concepts
Yep.
through traditional leadership competencies?
so connected, isn't it? When you talk about the DEI and how that it just
Yes.
as you say that, you're like, well, yeah, like if you do so, if you create this inclusive space where it says, hey, bring your full self to the table and
Yes.
you know, put what you got on display and let's see it, right?
Yes.
That leads
Yes.
that leads to the creative process. And the reason why I really love about that is if you imagine being in a room full of people and everyone's just freely being themselves, that's when the ideas start to spark. And that's when, oh,
That is
wait, and it
correct.
triggers all sorts of wonderful learnings that me by myself may not have come to by my in a room, like alone, right?
No,
Whereas you come
no.
together and create just a wonderful synergy.
And you know, it's interesting because there's some research recently done by Ella Washington that talks about globally, less than 20% of organizations actually have a sustainable DEI practice. So you
Mm,
have to wonder in the year 2023, why don't we still have sustainable practices in 50, 60, 70% of organizations?
right.
And it's because we've learned these fundamentals without incorporating them in our day-to-day practice. So if you've learned something, but you don't know how you could apply it to your day-to-day practice, are you going to use it?
Right, yeah.
No.
What's
Right.
the
So we're
sense of it?
wondering why organizations, you know, they're aware, they're compliant, they're tactical, they have integrated models, but they're not building sustainable practices. Let's start to build that sustainability by incorporating some of these lessons more practically in how they manifest on a
Right.
day-to-day basis. Then you'll start to see people saying, oh, when I made that decision,
Yep.
I my bias was involved. When
Yes.
I'm trying to build trust, that is involved. Like they're able to see it more practically.
Um, you said so much thing that sparked so many wonderful. I have to say, I'm like, oh my god, I can go all kind of places with this. But let's talk about what that sustainability plan looks like in these
Mhm.
organizations. And there's probably a whole host of them, but maybe a couple or two or three things that come to mind.
Yeah, so let's bring it into practical
Okay.
terms, right? Because the World Economic Forum says that by 2025, we're going to display AI automation is going to displace 85 million jobs,
Mm,
but it'll also create 97 million jobs, meaning the creation of 12 million new jobs.
yes.
Now, what are those jobs going to look like?
Right.
Those jobs are going to look like ones that are not doing mundane activities, but ones that require higher order levels of thinking,
Yes.
creativity, innovation, critical thinking skills, right? So, again, the companies that are going to really maximize and capitalize not just on the 12 million, but sustaining that 12 million within their workplaces are the
Yes.
ones that are going to say, well, how are you creative? But
Yeah.
how are you disrupting your own discriminatory practices within that process?
Yes.
And so it's not just enough to be creative in isolation. To your point earlier, it's about being creative as part of a team, as part of
Mm,
global communities, as part of individuals who could say, oh, my creativity is only limited by my limited experience.
yep.
But if I add my creativity with Celina's creativity, which has a
Yes.
totally different
Yeah.
experience,
Yep.
we could do some wonderful things.
You know, you talk, and so yes, yes, and triple yes. You know, you talk about the when we talk about the advent of AI as an example. You know,
Yeah,
you can use AI to write a piece of copy, but that
right.
doesn't mean that copy is going to be able to connect with the intended audience at an emotional or deep level, right? It just
Let's
can't.
talk about that.
It's going to have the facts, right? It's going to have the nuts and bolts of it,
Exactly.
but you're
You
not
could
going to be able to
generate.
connect, right?
You could generate, but you can't
Yes,
abdicate the fact that there's a humanity,
yes,
there's a humanization perspective,
yes,
there's your
absolutely.
empathy, there's your critical thinking, there's
Yeah,
your compassion that goes into taking that generated information
yeah,
that is based on historical relevance and then taking it and saying, well, based on my knowledge, I know that contextually
yeah.
this is going to be prioritized. That
Yes,
is not.
yes,
This
yes,
is requires a little bit more softness. This
yes.
does not.
Yeah, yeah. My audience likes to know about this, and that's what you know you can build your messaging around. So, I
Exactly.
I do love that stat around the number of more jobs will be created
But they're
through the
different
advent.
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
they're different ones.
Well, I can remember conversations with the internet. With the internet was, you know, what that would do to jobs in the job industry and how it impact, and you know, we're doing okay.
We're doing okay. We just need to be a little bit more audacious in
There we
how
go.
we think about what we're doing next. We cannot become complacent. We
Yes.
cannot just assume that, AI is going to just get rid of my job.
No.
Well, okay, it might get rid of components of your job, but let's really think about what that means. Let's push the envelope a little bit. Let's be more sort of creative and thinking about not just getting rid of jobs, because that
Right.
means we lost our connectiveness to our humanity.
Mm,
And we
yeah.
can't do that.
No.
We
No.
can't leave people behind.
No.
That's what we've done. That is not audacious living.
No. It is absolutely
That's
not.
historical living.
Yes, it is.
Let's be bolder.
I am going to put a bell off to the side, and every time I hear audacious from you, we're going to ding it and ding it and ding it, because you're absolutely correct, Celina. You really are. You touched on fear earlier, and that's a really important one that I'd like to spend some time talking about, because it's so funny. You think if you have a conversation with a young child, you don't have to tell them to be creative or think differently. They just naturally do. But as life goes on and time goes on, experiences impact us. Maybe we're a bit weathered, and we're gun shy at whatever it is that we think twice about our actions, or wonder what people are thinking about us, and all these things that come in to stifle our creativity. But in the heart of that, it really is about fear, isn't it?
It is, but it's more than that. So we live in a society that continuously dehumanizes us, whether we want to believe it or not. And it's everybody. Based on your intersecting identities, you start to feel the impacts of that dehumanization a little bit more than others, but everybody experiences some form of oppression or dehumanization. And so, as you know, I always say that the most audacious version of Celina is the 3 to 5-year-old version, the one who didn't care that she couldn't sing and sang anyway, the one that was swearing at 3 years old, the one that was out there walking home alone from school and not having to be dropped off last on the bus. That Celina was like, she was killer. She was unfiltered, unapologetic about how and who she was. And then as you evolve, life tells you, well, you're supposed to be seen and not heard. Life tells you, well, you know what? In this society, we like straight hair. In this society, Celina, you're a little too much. You laugh out loud a little too much. And in this society, maybe you shouldn't wear like your nails too long and your neck tattoo. Like, don't do that. Hand tattoo, don't do that. Don't pierce this. Don't do this. So, and you start becoming smaller and smaller. So the biggest version of you becomes the smallest version, and you try to fit into this context that society has deemed okay. And in that dehumanization, you lose yourself. And so the work that I'm doing now, even in my doctoral studies, is looking at the democratization of justice, the removal of these barriers that tell us what we are supposed to be, the democratization of justice that is a mechanism towards our humanization, removing the barriers that allow us to connect our humanity. And when you are allowed and you given the space to connect in your humanity, again, it's not just about finding ways to humanize for yourself, it's the collective.
So for me, and where I struggle with this, Celina, is the why it happens. Because we actually have more to gain if we're collectively being that creative, audacious, innovative individuals that we can be, that we are, that we naturally are. But it doesn't happen. And I know the question why is it is a big question. It really is. I don't want to be fair to you by saying that, but why do you think?
So it's about power. So readers might be interested in reading Michael Foucault's Discipline and Punish. And it's a very difficult book to read. It's dense. Read it while you're watching the YouTube of the person's narrating it. It's much better.
Okay.
But in this book, Michael Foucault talks about the penal system and how we've evolved from, public execution and torture to putting people in prison. And when you put people in prison, you have these hierarchies. You have supervision. People are watching you, making sure that you do things on time. If you pass it, you go from like maximum security to minimum security, and you have to do certain things to be able to go up in sort of the
Yep.
hierarchy.
Yep.
That is applied to everything. We've taken this model and applied it to schools,
Yeah.
to healthcare, to corporate settings.
Yep.
You supervise when your colleagues arrive late. You supervise yourself.
Right.
You want to pass so you can get up in the company. You want to arrive at 9 o'clock and make sure you don't leave before 5. We have been disciplined to create these docile bodies.
Yes.
And so when we think about how that manifests, if that oppressive structure is built into every single aspect of our society, it is by design. So when I say things like the system is working as it should,
Yep.
that's because it is. It was designed that way. And so you cannot use, to quote Audre Lorde, the master's tools to dismantle this system. You need to understand how the system operates in order to then understand what you are actually afraid of. And how that power starts to then crumble.
Yeah, right. And then also the actions that you need to take for that crumbling to actually happen.
That's correct. That's correct.
And the manner in which we approach like I even think about progress as an example. Well, in order to have progress, exercising our ability to be me and you being you helps us move forward.
Yeah, and we need to be intentional about that, though.
Yeah.
It's not just about saying, so audaciousness is not just about saying, oh, I know what I need to do and I'm going to move forward. It's about saying, well, society has told me I need to straighten my hair, but I'm not going to do that anymore. Right. Is that an intentional act? Is that a moment of awakening? Is that a moment of building higher consciousness? Right? I know we're going into like different areas, but when you're able to do that, you start thinking about differently. You start thinking about these systems differently and how you could empower yourself to operate within those systems and there empower others. So even something as simple as saying, I'm going to return to my natural hair. Yep. I'm not going to be worried about being seen and not heard. I'm going to laugh as loud as I want to laugh when I go into spaces. These are moments of liberation and joy. And so my dissertation is around making that intentional. Let's write these down. Let's note what these experiences are and how they transform us to more fully recognizing our humanity.
I love the impact of what that can have on others. So if I step into who I am and be who I'm supposed to be, what I'm doing, Celina, is I'm giving permission to others to go, well, hey, Audley's doing that. Celina's doing that. Why can't I be me?
Why can't I be me?
And that's when it really starts to get powerful.
Yes, because what did Marianne Williamson said, that our greatest fear is not that we are weak. Our greatest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. Right. So that's not taken from an egotistic perspective. That means that Audley is using his natural skill, the thing that his ikigai, his thing that is dharma, the thing that he was sent here for to do in the most full 110% audacious way, and you're joyful doing it. And that joy, that power, that light actually touches other people, and it says, hey, man, that's pretty cool. I'm just excited being in your aura. And so then you get excited about you know what I mean? That's how it works.
Yeah, no, it does. And I even think about, so we all go through life's challenges and problems and adversity strikes, and no one's immune to it. And knowing that I'm going through something, but then I saw Celina do this, man, and she was going through something similar, and she stepped through that. Well,
Yes.
I can too. Like that's the kind of powerful that I'm talking about, where it makes you think beyond your present circumstance, and you get that unstuck feeling that people oftentimes are left with because they're in this box, or they think they're in this box, but they can break out of it. And so I'm always that part for me is probably by far the most exciting for me, is what you can do for other people simply by just being ourselves.
And I think this is a philosophy from the Buddha, right? Like, you could have pain in your life,
Yeah.
but keeping that pain and suffering with it is a choice, right? You could say, I have pain, I hit my leg, it's painful.
Yes.
Right? And you could decide to get some polysporin, put it on it, and heal, or you could decide to hold on to it for like the next 10 days and go, oh, I can't be here today. I'm so pained, my leg is so painful. Well, what did you do about it? Yeah, it's just painful. It's just painful. That is a choice to suffer. And so we could use that pain, and as hard as that is, there should be an equal and opposite beautiful reaction to that pain. And that's why I called even politics in my book a painfully beautiful experience. Because as deep and as ingrained that was that hurt and that pain, child, I don't believe, I don't think, I actually know that there is going to be an equally beautiful opposite reaction to that pain. 100%.
Absolutely. Well, it's the stories that we tell ourselves, and if that story is every time I do this, I get hurt, as opposed to, okay, I did this, I got hurt, I'm not doing it again. Those are the same situation, two entirely different stories.
Two types of stories, right?
So,
and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna get hurt. You tell yourself that you're gonna get hurt. you say you're gonna heal, and it's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be a beautiful thing after this. I know it. Nothing could stop that beautiful thing from happening to me. I know that for sure. And if it's happening to me, it's happening to all y'all, all you listeners out there. It's happening to you too.
Without question. And I think that's when we talk about the fears, that's where the fears come in, right? Because of that story that you've told yourself, where I can't go in this space because every time I go, every single time I go in this space, I get hurt. So you know what? I'm not going there ever again. And that becomes my stance I take. And I may even start discouraging others from going in that same space too, because of this hurt of a story that wasn't even true.
Right. And so people, when they ask me, why did you run for mayor of Toronto? Like, knowing full well that Toronto is not going to embrace you the same. It's a different beast. It's for that reason. You cannot just let this thing paralyze you. I needed to get it out of my system.
Right.
I needed to say, you know what? It was the same thing like growing up. I went to U of T. I graduated with a 1.58 GPA, and people were like, well, why'd you go back? Like, it beat you up the first time. Why'd you go back a second time?
Right.
Because you just knew it couldn't beat you.
Yeah.
And so even going back and running again, it didn't matter the results. It was the audacity to say, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
That's it. The win wasn't about what happened in the end. The win was the journey. The win was the beginning. The win was every step along the way. The win was saying that I'm going to have a love for me and love for this process throughout the whole thing this time.
Yeah.
Win or lose, it didn't matter. The end did not matter.
No. Well, too much is tied to that outcome, right? To the end that you talked about. And when we, I think it's important to separate ourselves from the outcome and look at that journey as you talk, that process, because that's really where the fulfillment comes in. And I would have probably imagined that through that journey, there's some things that you've learned. Maybe there's some people that you've met, some understandings that you've gained, or new perspectives along the way that you wouldn't have gained if you said, well, I'm too afraid to do this.
100%. And it's not just about learning them. It's about being intentional about saying, well, what were those lessons? It's that whole thing around Ms. Take. Ms. Take comes into your life, and she's like the greatest teacher ever, but we usually just assume that she leaves the hurt and the guilt and the shame, but Ms. Take leaves the lessons. And it is in those lessons, oh my gosh, that the beauty actually starts to, that's where the seed of that beautiful moments start to sprout up. Because if you don't learn those lessons, you live in that hurt.
Yes.
and it'll consume you. And
Because
there's no audacious living when you're consumed by hurt.
no. Thank you for reiterating the importance of the intentionality.
Yeah.
Because that really, it's a kind of like the bow on everything. Like you can go through everything and then you
Oh yeah.
intentional and make it happen. And
Oh yeah.
and then the other part about this too is, you know, you can be intentional, you can move forward, and it may not work out, right? So
Yeah.
you may not be mayor of Toronto. Okay, it didn't happen. But what
Yeah.
came out of that? And what was the next? And what came and how we develop and how we grow. So there's so much that comes with it. And then but when we tie ourselves to that final outcome, that's where it becomes a really slippery slope for us.
No, and I remember so on August 3rd, so I write the notes in my phone. So
Yes.
August 3rd, I took time to reflect. So this is maybe a month and a little bit after the election. Yes, that night walking home on Dundas Street was
Mm,
it was humbling, right? You get 200 votes. The person that wins gets 1,000 times more
right.
votes.
Right.
And I'm like, oh Lord, like really?
Uh,
This is your life right now? But I had to write it down. What did we learn here? One, I have no unfinished business in politics. Stop
mm,
acting like you do. Stop pining
mm,
over it. Number two,
mm,
I don't need to be in the center to have impact. Number three, I do not need to have a spotlight all the time. There's a season for everything,
yes,
right? You know,
yes.
and I think the most important thing is it brought me closure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're okay. You could go back in politics again if you want to. You could do this again. You could
Mhm.
do it and win. And look, let me tell you something. The universe said this. You could go into politics and win, which you've done.
Yeah.
Now, let me show you what else could happen. You could go in politics and you could lose, and it's still okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I'm still here. Like
I was like, what?
I'm intact. I got, you know, all
Oh
my limbs,
my
everything's
God, I'm
good.
not even bruised. I'm
Yeah.
just like, you know,
I think the thing that gets
exactly.
yeah, I think the thing that gets bruised sometimes is our ego, right? And that's okay.
That part. That, and once the ego gets in the way of audacious living, that's when you start to have problems, right? So I think more ego put me into that election,
Yep.
but the lessons that came out was like, okay, honey, right now you need to focus on some other things that you're doing. It might be in the background, you might not be out front and center. That's okay. Focus on what you're doing. Take the time. This is not your season. You're seeing everybody else out there doing their
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
Let them have their season.
Yes. Yes.
It's okay, Celina. That's a fun lesson for me. I want my season now too. Come on.
Don't you just love that self-talk? Isn't that
Yeah.
wonderful?
Yes. Yes. Me. Now. And it's like, child, calm down. You'll get your season.
I like
Now
that.
you just need to calm.
Yeah. I and I'm certain this has probably come up indirectly in our conversation thus far. But I'll certainly ask directly. Why was sort of again focusing on creativity and innovation so important for you?
You know what? It was important for a number of different reasons. I think the first one was that I needed to understand the different ways in which we think creatively. Because
Okay.
oftentimes you think that, you know, well, you're just being creative.
Right.
No. There's four different kinds of thinking. And I, even for myself, realized that I only use two of them from a
Okay.
day-to-day basis.
Okay.
And so just even the understanding for me of the cognitive process that happens when you're being creative and
Okay.
how you could start to foster it and build it. And then what are the implications of not being creative to the innovative pieces that happen, not just
Right.
in the organization, but in your own life, in your own family. And what I'm finding is with the students that are the learners that are in this class, is that they're not, so I get these, you know, papers that they write once a week and I'm
Yep.
reading through them, and they're not just applying their learnings to their workspaces.
I
You
love
know,
it.
I have people saying that they're applying their learnings with their children
Love it.
and with their spouse. They're saying, I recognize this creativity in my child when they're like painting and doing this stuff. Next time I'm gonna put down my beer and I'm gonna go paint with my child. I was
Wow.
like, you don't have to put on the beer. You could paint the beer can.
Right, right.
We don't have to do, we don't have to go extra. We don't
Okay,
have to
let's
do
go
too
too
much.
far now.
Going too far, going too far. Paint the beer can and then you'll be okay.
Right.
But that's just it. Like it's, if these new jobs are going to require us to be creative, it's going
Yep.
to require us to have a different set of skills, creativity being one of the top 10, then why wouldn't I want to delve deeper into what that means?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't I want to be the one that is creating the course to really pull in all this information and understand it for myself so I could share it with others?
My guess is when it sort of first came to you and landed in this is the direction you wanted to go, it probably excited you, I would imagine.
It did. It was really because it was challenging. It wasn't just the regular everyday kind of a course.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember hearing Brene Brown talk about vulnerability being the birthplace of creativity and innovation. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the space that I was in. I was coming out of, years of being in this political system,
Yep.
being very hurt by some of the elements, and I was in a vulnerable place. And at the same time, I was like sort of thinking about all like how I'm going to write my dissertation, what am I going to do in this course, and how that was going to work out. And so there was an opportunity there to, again, use that pain or that vulnerability to do something that was more than just creative, but to create a course that I knew would help other people in the process.
Yeah. I love it. I really do. I really, really, really do. It's a wonderful thing. Um, uh, well, I'm asking probably more out of curiosity than anything else. So of the four creative elements used too, what are your two?
Okay, so the four types of creativity are integration. So the ability to show that two things that appear different are the same.
Okay.
So when you think about that as an
Like a
example,
puzzle.
well, your iPhone,
Oh, okay.
your phone is not just a phone, it's a camera, it's a
Yes.
calendar, it's
Okay.
all of these
Gotcha.
different things.
Yes.
That's an example of integrative
Gotcha.
creativity, right?
Okay.
You
Okay.
splitting, the ability to think about the way things that actually look the same are actually different,
Yep.
right? So you
Yep.
split them up into like smaller components. Then you have a distal thinking, and that's the ability to think that things are very different from here and now. So it's almost like future thinking. This is like Nikola Tesla. This is like
Gotcha.
using your imagination. This is self-driving cars type
Gotcha.
thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there's a figure ground reversal. So the ability to see what is crucial, not in the foreground, but in the background. So seeing the forest for the trees, but
Yes.
it's the forest instead of just the tree.
And that's figure ground?
Figure ground reversal.
Reversal. I like that one. I'm
Yeah,
gonna hang my head on that one.
Right. So it's the ability to see the bigger picture,
Yes,
and not
yes.
necessarily write what's in front of
Right.
you.
Yep.
And so, I use integrative thinking and splitting a lot. So I often say that I could when I look up at the sky, I don't just see stars. I see like the constellations. Like I could put the strategy together by very disparate pieces. So that's integrative thinking.
Okay.
But I also, when I think about, strategies for a GR campaign or a government relations campaign, I know at the end result what my client would want, and I'm able to split it up into smaller components and all of the little things that go with the one strategy. So it's not just about the campaign to get X. It's about all the little things that you need to do, all the A, B, C, D, E, F, Gs to be able to get to X.
Yep. Project management, if you will.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. So for me, splitting and integrative thinking are the ones that I use. I would love to be able to do the figure ground reversal or the distal thinking. Okay. And so those are the things that even in understanding this course, you start to figure out, okay, how are ways that I could build that? How can I, look at my students and engage with them, the people who are those types of thinkers, and say, okay, well, how did you solve that problem? Because I would have solved it this way. But this is the thing when
Great question. That's a really good question. How did you solve that problem? Because what
How
you're
did you
mentioning,
solve
yeah,
it?
because you're doing
Right.
different pathways now, right? Like,
Exactly, exactly. But imagine being in an office
yep,
space with
yep,
with your team, right?
yep.
And you don't know this about your team. You don't know that there's four different ways of thinking,
Hmm.
and there's always one person that comes up with the answer that matches yours, and you're like, "Great answer.
Yes,
We're gonna
yes,
run with that."
right.
And imagine the person that is in that room that thinks differently, and
Yes.
they're like looking at you like, "These people are nuts. I could see the future of this problem." And
Mm,
I use distal thinking, not knowing that that's the title, but
yep.
I see the future, and we could do so much better if we didn't just do an integrative
Yes.
approach. We could like capitalize on the market if we did something that was
Yep.
more future forward, if we did the
Yep.
self-driving car thing,
Yes. Yep.
right? And so that person often, because you have these similarity biases, you are drawn
Yes.
towards the person
Right.
that gives you the answer that
That's
is
right.
most applicable to you.
That's right.
And you've now lost
Everyone else,
the
forget everyone else.
ability to
Yeah.
get everybody else's opinion.
Yep. 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 Yep.
It's
Yep. Yep.
crazy.
Yeah. Well, we talked at the very beginning about how having in one room and how beneficial that is, and now you've just applied some layers to that that makes it even more important why that is, because you get
Absolutely.
those different perspectives, those different understandings, those different ways of doing things, and all of them, like there's space in the pool for everybody. There is.
There is space. And so when you do an actual brainstorming session,
Uh-huh.
what generally happens is some people are like, oh, everybody said some kind of integrative approach. Well, let me stick on that way because that seems safe. Right. So you have to have a psychologically safe space for that person to go, everybody's over here and they're going
Right.
way over
Right.
there.
Right. Right.
And then you have to ask them, okay, how do you get from way over
Yep.
there back here? And
Yep.
they will be able to do that, but you have to give them the space,
Yes. Yep.
the
Yep.
compassion, the empathy, the even if AI were to generate this solution for
Yes.
you, you need to then be able to contextualize it and
Yep.
say, if this is the answer, how did we get there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which there's a part of this, and we touched on this earlier too, that the space has to be safe, as you said, to allow people to feel audacious enough to go over there, as opposed to saying, "Well, I better stay over here with everyone else because no one, I'll be by myself," right? So that the whole fear thing comes into play. But
Yeah,
I think you're bang on. Like the space has to be conducive to allow
right.
people to be okay with thinking differently and doing things differently. If it's not, people
Absolutely.
won't, right?
Absolutely. And then just imagine though, when you have individuals that are often marginalized.
Yep.
So I think about my son, in second grade, all of a sudden getting these reports being sent home. Oh, he's being disruptive, he's being, not impactful in class. And this kid is actually a genius. So he's writing these reports on DNA versus RNA, and the teacher won't let him present it because the students aren't there yet. And I'm thinking
Mm,
his creativity is so much more, it's different. And
yeah.
so how many of our children get labeled
Yep. Yep.
because they are different?
Hmm.
They have different ways of thinking. And it goes back to Michael Foucault of having like these disciplined ways of teaching in a classroom, these
Yep.
disciplined ways of learning in your spaces. It's not conducive to people that think
Yep.
differently.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then you label them and you marginalize them and you push them to the side. And then what happens?
Yep. It makes you rethink, like, because everyone's had, you think back, use the example of school, everyone's had that bad kid in their class, and that was labeled as being bad. And obviously now we've got that ability to, retroactive, to look back and retrospect,
Yeah.
to go, it's no, it wasn't that they were bad, they were just doing it differently.
Doing it differently. And honestly, if we didn't have the capacity to like my husband and I have the capacity to say to interrogate it, to go to the school and say, well, what do you mean Johnny's being disruptive? And then to financially get him tested. So we have to pay out of pocket to get him gift tested for the gifted program. What
Yep.
about parents that can't do that?
That's right. That's right. Didn't have the
Right?
wherewithal. Yep. No.
So the disenfranchisement that happens when we when we don't when we don't allow that difference, when we don't allow that blossoming, when we don't allow that full self to materialize, how many of us have seen that happen as children?
Yeah.
How many of us have seen that happen as adolescents? And how many of us have seen that happen as adults? Because it continues to happen. And this is why, even though we're talking about creativity and innovation, it is a prime opportunity to talk about the democratization of justice, to remove those barriers so that we could get closer and closer to our collective humanity. This is not just a simple course in drawing or painting or doing things that are creative. This is about fundamental principles of our humanity that are required for us to even think about living audaciously. Because if we can't think about it, there's no way that we could ever do it.
It's the first step in that direction, as I see it. And I think
100%.
I love it.
And it's something as simple as a course on creativity.
I love it. I love it.
Trojan horse it in there.
Oh no, I love it, Celina. I love it. This is so outstanding. I like I said, when I saw that you were teaching the course, and I see you're doing so many wonderful things. I don't want to not give light to wonderful things that you're doing, but when I saw this, I got excited. I immediately got excited, and with good cause. And I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing, and it very much is a starting point for individuals that someone I want to learn more or connect to figure out how to be a part of this program. Where can we send them?
Yeah, so you know what? Everything is on my Instagram. I think that's just the easiest way to do it. You go to I am Celina CC, so that's CELINA. I'm not Celine. I'm not with an S. CELINACC. I am Celina CC. I'm Celina CC. And just go to my Instagram page. Go to the link in the bio. You'll see a few different links there. You could register for the course. You can look at the course. But what I think I'm going to start doing, which I haven't started yet, is doing a little, just little videos that, just have a little snippets of the course so people can understand.
Yep.
What is she talking about? Creativity and innovation. How do you write a course on that? And how do you write a course that you can be micro-credentialed in? Meaning that you don't just know about creativity and information, but you could actually show that you could apply it.
Yeah.
So in order to get a micro-credential for this, you have to show your application of these learnings to your real life.
And what I love about that, when you talk about the four different sort of creative I guess zones of creativity, if you will.
Yes.
The application to real life is fantastic, and being able to do that. But even if you were, so if I was, focused on one particular creative zone, if you will, and it doesn't mean I can't learn or can't develop or can't apply these others to my life, or whether it's professional or personal. So I do love the ability of being able to not only learn about yourself, but learning about the possibilities of where you can go, which is exciting.
Oh yeah, and where you can improve these skills, right? So again, World Economic Forum, I keep repeating the reference, but in 2020 indicated that, among other things, one of the top 10 required skills for work included creativity. And so when you think about that, how do you build that? Well, you build that through curiosity, having conversations with the unlikely suspects, right? Having those conversations, building those curiosity around people. 2 is open-mindedness. Like, stop being closed in our ways of thinking. 3 is imagination, things that children do very well.
Oh yeah,
that we've stopped.
Yes.
Right, we've stopped daydreaming. We've stopped using our imagination. And number 4 is problem solving. And so when we think about, let's figure out ways to build that. But when we're building it, we're going way back to just simple, practical applications that allow us to build one of the top skills that you're going to need for the future of work.
Yeah, so love that you mentioned curiosity, because I've always believed that when you remain curious and you're asking questions and you're being that inquisitive, you're suspending all judgment. You can't do something by being curious about it at the same time. And so if judgment is taken off the table now, it leaves room for everything else to blossom, grow, and develop. And so curiosity is a big one.
100%. That is it is a really big one. For me, I think it's the imagination piece. And when we think about Tricia Hershey's book, Rest is Resistance, like this, this manifesto on claiming back our dream space that has often been taken away from us through through a capitalist sort of society where you're forced to hustle. You're always hustling. You're always working.
Right.
Where do you have time to just sit back, relax, and be intentional about imagination? Be intentional about your dream space. Be intentional about saying, let me meditate, let me rest, let me close my eyes, let me really think about this problem from a magical space that is in me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of implications to this course for not just how we work. And I go back to, some of what my learners are talking about, bringing it home to their spouse, to the children.
Yep.
It's about how you start to live and see things differently, including yourself and those around you. It's not just about capitalistic advantage. It is also about creating more of those connections, because you do suspend the judgment that you have of yourself and others in this space.
Celina, this has just been so wonderful. I do appreciate you taking the time again. It's so wonderful to chat with you, and congratulations on the course and breaking ground in this way. I see the tremendous opportunity to do so many wonderful things, and so again, congratulations and thanks again for doing this. This is so audacious of you.
Thank you. We covered a lot of ground in this talk. So again, if anybody wants to get in touch, I reference so many different articles. I am Celina CC. Get in touch with me. Send me a DM. I will send you all the links to the articles, all the links to the books that I reference. But thank you for using this platform to do more than just have these conversations. You're really providing that foundation or that opportunity for people to learn in the most audacious way. So I appreciate it.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Back we are here at the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to Celina for being here and broadening our understanding of the importance of exercising our own creativity. I also think the lessons in her talks around being intentional with our actions and why that important is significant, and the ways we can be more inclusive of others and why it matters. And so thank you, Celina, for again opening up our eyes and helping us to recognize some things that perhaps we didn't see or didn't recognize. Thank you. That's all I can say is thank you. I really appreciated so much of what Celina had to share, and I was glad that she did this for the second time. And if there's just one thing I take from the chat that we had, it would have to be this. Human creativity and innovation have played an instrumental role in shaping our world. From groundbreaking scientific discoveries to revolutionary artistic expressions, the ability to tap into our creative and innovative potential has brought about remarkable advancements throughout history. In this fast-paced and ever-changing world, it's more important than ever before to recognize and harness the advantages that lie within our inherent creativity and innovation. Let's take a moment and explore the numerous benefits as well as opportunities that arise when we dare to embrace our imagination and inventive spirit. Creativity and innovation are crucial for problem solving and adaptability. They enable us to approach challenges from fresh perspectives, thinking outside of the box and finding unique solutions to complex problems. By tapping into our creative resources, we can adapt new situations, embrace change, and overcome obstacles with greater resilience. This ability to think creatively and innovatively empowers individuals and organizations to stay ahead in a rapidly evolving world. Creativity and innovation can significantly enhance productivity and efficiency in various domains. When we allow our minds to explore new ideas and possibilities, we often discover more efficient methods, processes, and technologies. By encouraging innovation within the workplace, organizations can streamline operations, optimize resources, and achieve higher levels of productivity. Moreover, cultivating a culture of creativity can boost employee engagement, motivation, and satisfaction, leading to a more productive workforce. Engaging in creative endeavors fosters personal growth and fulfillment. When we tap into our creativity, we enter a state of flow where time seems to fade away and we become fully immersed in the present moment. This experience of flow promotes mindfulness, reduces stress, and enhances overall well-being. By nurturing our creative selves, we embark on a journey of self-discovery, self-expression, and personal fulfillment. Creativity and innovation have the power to ignite social, cultural transformations. They challenge the status quo, break down barriers, and inspire new ways of thinking. Through creative expressions such as art, music, literature, and film, we can share diverse perspectives, bridge cultural gaps, and foster empathy and understanding. Furthermore, innovative solutions can address societal issues, promote sustainability, and improve the quality of life for individuals and communities worldwide. In a world that constantly demands adaptation and progress, tapping into creativity and innovation is no longer a luxury, but a necessity. By embracing our creative potential, we unlock a myriad of advantages and opportunities for personal as well as professional and societal growth. Whether it's solving complex problems, boosting productivity, fostering personal fulfillment, or sparking social transformation, our creativity and innovation are the keys that unlock a brighter, more prosperous future. So let us dare to dream, explore, and create, for within us lies the audacious power to shape the world around us. We've sadly come to the end of another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast, and as always, I send a thanks and shouts to our amazing listeners and all those lovers of audaciousness for your tremendous ongoing support for it. It's so much appreciated, and to all of you, I say thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.